All right, guys, today's video is about the effects of nitrogen pumpers, reasons why we need to maximize these plants' abilities, and the longevity of planting these type things over and over again. The older members that are here understand where I'm going with this, because if you look back at the one video that I posted back from 2018, this plot had horrendous nitrogen numbers. And you can see that plain as day when you're looking at the video. It's not even really a food plot at that point, but I tried with the soil I had. Now, years of doing these cycles is beginning to pay off big time. So I'm showing you right now, especially if you're new. I still have a high rate of new members coming through the channel right now. You know, I've only been restoring this now in its third year. So that means the nitrogen pumpers have not been doing this as long as the other areas. But the color you see here, it's doing pretty darn good. Probably the best color I've seen in here since I've been doing the food plotting here. And what I've referred to by color is the green. The deeper the green, the better the protein output is if you're trying to gauge your protein ability to deer. So nitrogen pumpers have been put in here, but it's mainly deer vetch, sun hemp, and this year I put out a few peanuts. Peanuts are low in. There's also a stray amount of clover mixed in here, not too much. So it didn't get the full gauntlet of the other nitrogen pumpers that I was doing. But with what I see here, I'm pretty happy with that. Would you not be fairly satisfied, especially with as cold as it's been, if your greens are still looking this good? I would think so. This yellowing is going to rebound because I'm about to add what I think is a potassium problem back into these weak spots. So my potassium did arrive today, and I will be doing a video on this just to show you how I'm treating some of these weaker zones with potassium to bulk the plants up, because that's the signs they're showing me, is they don't have the bulk like these plants do. Okay, so what happens with the nitrogen pumpers? We need to understand how nitrogen pumpers work. All right, first off, let's use clover, because a lot of people love planting clover. It might be a little cheaper route to go, and if you base it off of research, you're going to get 130 to 150 pounds per acre of nitrogen produced by clover, which that's fantastic, but your soil may not allow it. And I've repeatedly talked about this with the copper videos, how bad my copper was. Well, this year, this whole plot got 10 pounds of copper put in it, or copper sulfate in this case. And what happens is my nitrogen pumpers were not performing as they should. So like I stated earlier with your clover, if you expect 130 to 150 pounds per acre with clover, and you have nutrient problems in your soil, you can forget producing that 130 to 150 pounds per acre. It may be 80 pounds an acre. Maybe as far down as 50 pounds an acre, or even less. If your clover is dying, your numbers just tumble off a cliff. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that when we're planting something, that we are getting our design effect. And you have to have nutrients in order to do that. Now, another problem that does crop up is if you do not have proper microbes and bacteria and or worms in your soil, that also affects the protein production rate and your nitrogen pumping rates. If those microbes and bacteria can do their job, you would see that 130, 150 pound range of nitrogen being produced. Or let me add this too, because new research, they keep finding and discovering more of these guys, that it could push it past the 150 mark. That could be something that could be discovered later on. But that is it is a possibility, but let's just leave it in the 130 to 150 range. Now, I have used not one nitrogen pumper, but multiple nitrogen pumpers. So my rates will vary because I use species that's stronger than clover. For instance, if you had optimal soil conditions, if you was to use, let's say, sun hemp that's all you planted was sun hemp because maybe your nitrogen was really bad. You know, if you had good soil conditions that would entice those plants to pump it, you could see 300 to 400 pounds per acre slapped into your ground suddenly. And that, 300 to 400 pounds is a big change, guys. That is cost that you don't have to do fertilizer wise. You let the plants do this. Now, I will warn you, when you first start doing this, it'll feel like you see a temporary effect. As the next crop comes in, it will start absorbing that new nitrogen really quick because it ain't had time to build up into the soil or even deeper into the soil. So the longer you do this, the better the effects and the longer lasting it gets. And it can stay that way for years if properly maintained, or even your lifespan, as long as you keep doing a good job. So the goal is get this soil better. Now I want to show you the effects of longevity and the other nitrogen pumper effects on the soil. So this looks pretty good. Color wise, I'm happy with it. But what happens when we step off into a new zone of different species? This had a lot of soybean in it, sun hemp, even had a few types of clover mixed in here. You can see what happens when there is another set of nitrogen pumpers mixed in. So we get sun hemp, which can pump a lot, 300 to 400 pounds per acre. Now cowpeas, this was combining all my nitrogen pumpers from here up, can produce 200 to 300 pounds per acre, depending on your soil makeup. Most of you would probably get around 200 with good soil. Outstanding soil with the new microbes that they've discovered probably could push it to 300. But this is what happens when you have years of doing these cycles. Look at how beautiful this green is filling in. Now, which one to you looks like the higher protein level? Side on the right, side on the left. Left, right. Guess what? In my opinion, right here's your winner. And I have a vastly large area compared to this that is this green now. Even section 1, even though it's not quite as green as this, is now doing much, much better. It is getting very close to what you're looking at here. I mean, we are getting really good plant conditions here. No boron. It's amazing, guys. I have not used any boron in here yet. And there's no way in the world that this plot would have made it this long. And I think copper, because, if you start understanding how these nitrogen pumpers work, copper assists your bacteria and your microbes. That's where it really helps with that exchange. So guess what? I have inflated the nitrogen numbers in the soil because of what copper has done. But copper also does help with green color, not on the scale of what nitrogen does, but it does help. But because of this, I am now getting the best protein consistently across the plot that I've ever seen. If I'm telling you, based on this now, that is my lowest output of protein, I think a lot of you would be shocked compared to what I was dealing out in the past. If my plot looked like this, I would have been absolutely joyful with that type of color. I mean, before you was looking at a bunch of bald spots, rocks sticking up everywhere. This might have been an inch tall, maybe 2. Well, we're not an inch tall or 2 anymore. We're up to 10 inches deep in places here now. Over here, we are averaging about 6 inches deep, and some spots are even deeper than that. I mean, there's some really good stuff over there. That's probably pushing maybe 8 inches in depth. but the color change because of years and years of cycling nitrogen pumpers in here has allowed me to save a huge amount of money. This plot is considered adequate. It is not optimal, but we have reached that threshold to where it's self-sustaining. And yeah, I could even raise this nitrogen level higher. That means the protein will keep creeping up. That's fine. I don't have to burn that money. I have time and patience. If you're willing to let these plants take control with your nitrogen pumpers and find ways to get the best return out of them, you're going to start seeing that money being saved. So if I put sun hemp in here for you new guys, this big dead skinny guy right here, let me get in here real quick. I'm really happy about this color. This is really good. Really, really good color. So that's your sun hemp plants right here. Now some of these are banned in other states, so be careful about what you order. You might want to check your rules. But sun hemp right here, see that? All right, we have plants that are hunkered down by this root zone. See how much greener they are, especially right in here. Now this camera's actually showing it compared to what I'm seeing here visually with my eyes. Add about 2 more shades to 3 more shades of darkness to this. The camera is showing it somewhat lighter than what I'm actually seeing. So we have an area where these plants have gotten entangled in these roots. And guess what? When these plants die, all that nitrogen in their stems, their roots, and whatever the bacteria and microbes made gets released. And now we have this result. All right, this is how I grow bigger deer. These plants need help, yes. Have I added fertilizer? Yes. You've got to start somewhere. If you don't want to use fertilizer, period, and you want to try this from scratch, you need to be aware that you need years of planting cycles to get it to this point. So do not get frustrated if you go that route and do no fertilizer whatsoever and try to plant your way into better soil. Fertilizer is a much faster reaction. Yes, you can have, if you got a good budget, you can have a fantastic food plot year 1 or 2. But you got to spend a lot more money versus just planting cycles. Okay, so now, not only are we getting the much better color that I'm looking for in here, so even in these open areas, that is not quite, well, actually, let me take this back. This is an open area where I've had constant groundhog problems, and they keep destroying the nitrogen pumpers here. So here, the color has dropped off a hair. I can kind of see a ring that these groundhogs have made where the nitrogen is not as good. Now look what happens once we get out of what the groundhog has done. We go to that. We're here. We transition. We're getting way darker, and the plants are getting bigger. This is really helping fill in tonnage better. The deer will put on weight. If you're adding protein, because your green level looks so much better, then you're adding muscle mass. This is going to help my deer recover better than ever with this type of green return that I've got going here. And the fact that I have not added boron yet. What would happen if I go in here and do my boron regimen? I think this place is absolutely going to explode. So there's no purple. I have not found any purple in here. This is the longest streak in history that I have not seen purple in this food plot. Except for 1 or 2 spots out here, which has not been treated as far as restoring as long as these areas have. This is looking great. You know, if this is a large, let's say I was upping my system to large scale where I can affect the deer even more. If you had food plots that you know are improving year after year, these nitrogen pumpers are really putting in a lot of work to do this. And now that they're up to where I want it, and or at least at the minimum, that result of that hard work of those nitrogen pumpers is what you see today. All this right here looks fantastic. See the green drop off compared to this? You can see it better there. Lighter green, dark green. These guys are absolutely killing it this year. So what could happen with deer like this? Well, first off, if you have a hard year with the rut, and let's say it's going to take months for a deer to recover from the rut, depending on what's happened to him. If you shave down 4 to 6 weeks of recovery time, that's a big bonus to growing extra antler. I'm a firm believer of getting these deer back up to a healthier body weight before, like pre-rut weight, and then exceed it again when you do really good feeding programs. So if you're trying to grow bigger deer, these nitrogen pumpers are going to play a huge role in what happens with your food plots. So up here we have more excellent color. This is a combination of cowpeas, sun hemp, soybean, actually about 2 different types of cowpeas, but subversions really don't matter as much. But we have every type of nitrogen pumper was in this area working this zone. And we have some excellent green color in here, other than this ugly fire ant mound. But that is fantastic returns. And if just be patient with this, guys. I want to show you section 1 before I end the video. So as we head up the hill, based on the knowledge that I know from this place and the soil test results, the color should drop off as I move up the hill. We're starting to see a little bit of that here. The plants are smaller, lighter green. Some of these have died right here. This is my screen wall, and it has not been restored like the other areas. So I want you to understand the importance of that. Here we have years and years of nitrogen pumpers. Here, not so much. And look at that. Ugly look, right? Not what I want. All right, so we're stepping up here into section 1. Oop, time to do a little soil improvement here. Get that out of here. All right, so now section 1, like I talked about, has been lagging behind my other areas. Not this year. Section 1 is now looking very promising. Take a look at that clover. That's crimson clover right there, just waiting to blow up. I see pretty strong patches of it in here. The turnips are surviving. See, that's been pretty hard to do for section 1 for the most part. I've had some success, mainly out on this end with turnips, not so much this side, but we have much better color. Like I said, it's not as good as the others. Part of that is how long I've been restoring the soil. This swat right here over this hump, which has always been the worst, looks so much better. So consistency wise, we are adding more protein across the board, more tonnage across the board. This is the type of plot that if deer were to come in here and browse this really hard, it's strong enough to recover at a rapid rate. See the green drop off, partially restored. It's not where I want it yet. Untouched soil here on the left. See the line? Makes a big difference when you're doing soil improvements. So these clover plants, which is why it's important to have nitrogen pumping plants year round, so that way you can keep this cycle going. Those guys are producing more nitrogen than ever. Same thing with these winter peas. Winter peas can produce up to 200 pounds. Say 150 to 200 on really healthy stands of that stuff. If your soil is not, you might as well drop it to 100 or less. It all depends on what your soil is willing to let it do. Now here, excellent example of what nitrogen pumpers have done here. All right, right here, big sun hemp plant. Sun hemp. These right here are all sun hemp. So we had a pretty good concentration of sun hemp right here. And there's a couple of them here that's broken off and fell over. And then we have a good concentration of different types of soybean. Look at the tonnage under here. Look out here. Right, we have, you know, some okay stuff here. It's not bad, especially for this area, considering I know what's happened in the past. But we get in here and look at that. Big time green up occurring in here. All these plants are so much bigger. Yeah, they have been partially protected by some of these other plants, but the overall health of these plants is outstanding compared to any years past. Let me zoom in a little tighter. Take a look there. Absolutely killing it for section 1. So nitrogen pumpers are a highly valuable source of growing big deer. Even though this is not all about nitrogen, I'm just highlighting one part of this. But the nitrogen is so important for these other species to perform better, and it helps build up your organic matter. It also helps these other plants to genetically get to where they're supposed to be. So that's just focusing on nitrogen. When you do the other nutrients, then you start putting the whole puzzle together and you got yourself a fantastic buck in the future. That's why I'm averaging for the does now 40 additional pounds over what they used to be here pre-food plotting. They come here so much that it serves as if this whole field is a food plot right now. And because of how strong it is able to handle repeated visits for now. And until, if the deer population was to explode, then I'm going to run into trouble. But it services the amount of deer I have, and we have no issues out of it. And every year, this is getting easier to do because of what the plants are doing to the soil. And of course, copper is a huge help to that, with understanding why nitrogen pumpers need help sometimes. So make sure you do all your proper nutrition. That will help with nitrogen pumpers and get you what they talk about in all these studies when it comes to how many pounds per acre you're actually getting. All right, guys, hope you enjoy this video. More to come as I continue my quest for more soil improvements. And hopefully the target bucks I'm after won't get completely shot out this time. We have one 10-pointer that survived. All my others are gone, but we do have some up-and-coming bucks that have survived, including a buck that I call Sporks 2.0, and he looks stronger than him. So that's a good sign there. All right, guys, have a great day. And as always, hit that like, subscribe button and the notification bell. See you guys later.